KHANTEHNT.
Nay and baby bro Vic and big man best guy ever.
Hello,
We're here
all.
to tell you about the first 4 episodes of Deca-Dence. A brand new anime show, an original, I believe, from Studio Nut, which it's, as far as I can tell, their first real ass show that they weren't doing with other people or adapting. It's their big look at us, we're a real anime studio project.
Yeah, and, it feels that way.
And as one of those, I gotta say, it's been pretty successful so far in my mind at being hey, this is a show a collective of caring and talented individuals put effort and heart into.
Yes,
you know?
definitely hits that spot.
Yeah.
Let's say I had already seen the first 4 episodes of this before you guys had. I've already done my own reaction videos on the first 2 episodes.
Right.
Indeed.
On the Vic and Hope channel.
On the Vic and Hope channel,
which is linked in the description.
In the doobly-doo.
We'll watch this first.
Don't say doobly-doo.
I know. It's
Only
fucking annoying.
still do
I'm doing that as a fucking, But moving on. Anyways, now I lost my train of thought.
Sometimes.
So
you were saying you've seen this before and you like it.
In this context today, we watched The God of High School right before this.
Yes, where we did.
Which was an interesting thing because I hadn't watched all of The God of High School. I had watched all of this. And, if that show weren't so hype, I think there would be even more hype. I've been so hyped for this show, but there's something about the moment-to-moment hype of God of High School that almost makes... this would have been the best show in any other season.
Yeah.
But,
it's
well, you got to give it time,
Yeah,
how
but
one
this
will
is
stack
certainly
up versus
a slower burn versus God of High School is a moment-to-moment, episode-to-episode,
let's be fair,
hype.
There's way the fuck more going on in this
there's
show.
way more going on.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate it taking its time because, so this show, we almost can't even start talking about it without just saying, just go ahead and watch the first 4 episodes. It's good. It's
at least the first two
before
because
there's no point in talking about it until after the spoilers.
Yeah,
so
which
if you're
we
interested
will
in
be
the show,
discussing. Yeah.
we can vouch for it. It is good. It is worth watching.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, I think it's worth watching as something that is very unique and interesting.
Agreed.
In a way that I sort of see this as a logical next step that I was kind of waiting for that I almost wish Darling in the Franxx had been.
Yeah.
Because that was a show that very much called back to the themes of shows like Gurren Lagann, all that stuff, but seemed to boil it down to make it the most accessible teenager, just emotions on high, themes boiled down to their core kind of experience. But ultimately, it was kind of saying the same thing as Gurren Lagann, fight the anti-spirals, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't trust the system. This show, that Band-Aid is ripped off in episode 2, where right away it's okay, everything that this main character is experiencing that you saw in episode 1, all of her ambitions, all of this shit, utterly fucking pointless because she is just humanity is basically a plaything in this semi-virtual, I guess it's not virtual, but people can control physical avatars on Earth to play an MMO game that humans are essentially like NPCs in. Except that they're not billed as NPCs. They are billed as a real species that you are fighting alongside.
Well, now
in
we've
this
seen
game,
it.
But
let me go over the mechanics as I understand them. And it's interesting to see. The most interesting thing about the show so far was that episode 1, it looks like a war Attack on Titan situation, and it is that. To Natsume and our characters, they want to be soldiers. It's very similar to Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
They go on sorties out just like the raiding party, the whatever it is from
Darling in the Franxx too. It's
we
the same
need to
concept.
mention we need to mention that it's a giant floating fortress like Darling. We're just gonna assume that they watched the first 2 episodes because this will be fucking impossible to follow if you haven't.
You must do
Pause. Go watch them. Finish the video.
Yeah.
You have to talk about spoilers.
But
we'll break it down if you don't want to. But we'll see how it goes.
Because they're in a traveling fortress type situation. Yes, it's you said it was from the same writer as Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress.
Yes,
and
he
feels
he
very
wrote
similar.
on Attack on Titan.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
and the fighting system is obviously taken from Attack on Titan because that show had the grappling where characters could fly around and do crazy tricks. This show, they have just bubbles where if you're in the bubble, then you can control your momentum basically. So people float around and fight in a similar style. So in the same way that Cavalry of the Iron Fortress was just like, let's take Attack on Titan and make it an original IP so that we make all the money off of it. This show is like, okay, well, let's take that a step further and actually imagine like something that takes the general themes of original anime, which always tend to be otaku spirit.
Yeah.
Fight the bad guys, keep fighting, never die. What if, like, we added another layer of meta, another layer of simulation onto the simulation that other shows have explored, where, like, right from the start, yes, humans are in the Matrix, but they're not the ones hooked up to the Matrix like it is in the Matrix.
Well, the chips in humans, I'm still unclear that our character Natsume is a human that was thought to be dead, so she's... Okay, you have to start, like, it's so many levels, because, to start with, there is a corporation that's just a giant conglomerate, authoritarian, possibly robot organization that controls everything.
It's androids, because the rich people created androids, and then the androids eventually were running the corporations.
So humanity put themselves into cyborg bodies.
Okay.
They created
Android
cyborgs.
bodies,
wait, hang on. When you say put themselves...
they are cyborgs. They are not androids. They are cyborgs.
Didn't you say...
Because now I've seen this twice, so it makes a lot more sense to me now. But so humanity created cybernetic bodies for them to live in because the atmosphere was uninhabitable.
Oh.
Then they created an AI to govern their society. That is the robot, like the communist sunglasses robots. Like they are the AI that control society.
Yeah, they did specifically
The
say cyborgs. They didn't say androids.
I remember reading the word androids and being like, oh, androids?
So are those humans that have been alive for hundreds of years?
That's what I think this is going.
His thing on his wrist said that he had, or his thing that he looked at, rather, said that he had like 150 years left or something like that, and he was like, fuck that, I'll decide for myself.
So here's the thing. The most precious resource in this world, you have Oxyon, which fuels everything.
Yeah.
But also, each cyborg has a brain.
Yes.
And when they recycle the cyborgs, they take out that brain and discard of the body. Because the brain is a precious resource.
Yeah.
And so they say, we're going to recycle this. So each cyborg has a brain in it that is presumably the only human element of them left. That's why they're cyborgs. Is that they have an organic brain inside of them, I think, that is being kept alive by the Oxyon. It's not explicitly... obviously, it'll be explained by the end of the series, but
okay, that makes sense.
The cyborg bodies are physical. I noticed in the first episode, I didn't catch the first time because you don't have the context. The very first shot, her dad is finding a discarded cyborg body.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, it's one of like the chibi cyborgs is on the ground in the body. So the cyborgs, when they're being discarded, are being discarded physically in this world.
Right, they're physical creatures. Yeah, we see. Okay. Let's just pause for a moment. So that people who don't know, I just want to lay it out here. So as we said, episode 1, there is a war going on against monsters, Attack on Titan style. Okay. Yeah. Episode 2, it is established that there are the gears, which are like different colored looking people who go and fight. What's actually going on is that those human beings are the remnants of humanity, and that there is an overall AI controlling that wartime environment to be a playground in an MMO style for these remnants of humanity cyborgs that exist. And all that system is, we find out in episode 3, I think, is controlled by a corporation that is running this whole feedback loop of fighting for the enjoyment of the AIs. For exactly what purpose they're doing that, I'm not totally sure. Maybe because we do see a shot of the Earth, and one giant portion of the Earth is in a bubble that is like the arena where this battle is being done. There are other giant spikes stuck into the Earth that I think are indicating that those are controlled by other corporations.
Presumably.
Yeah, because this is a future where corporations have taken over everything, and we're seeing like the dystopian little time, like what has
we're seeing it on the screen right now. They do talk about like copywriting humanity.
Oh yeah, they own the rights to humanity. This corporation. It had a name. It was the
Solid Quake. It's
on screen.
Solid Quake Corporation. Yes.
Yeah, they own the rights to all of humanity in this bubble, and it is shown that there are these other factions, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Starbucks. You got Google. You got Apple, and you got Solid Quake has their fun time place.
So I have a feeling
it's actually just like WALL-E. It's very similar to WALL-E.
Yeah.
Pollution, robots are in control, humanity's almost wiped out, but now it's like we have to rise up against the anti-spirals. Well, they haven't gotten to that yet, but clearly that's what's going to happen. I would think.
I think the nature of the society is like an inherent facade. Where I think the history being fed to the cyborg people is not reality.
Right. That's why I was saying that it's I think it's going to be multiple layers of.
I think
because where did the enemy aliens they're fighting come from? Did they make them as enemies for the war? Like, we don't know.
You know that it's a physical world that humanity is inhabiting, so it doesn't make sense for them to be like generated monsters in a program. Like it doesn't make sense as an MMO.
Right.
We know that there are physical elements.
So this is my theory is that. So they have to harvest the energy from the monsters to live. Like the energy comes from their blood, and they also eat the meat from the monsters.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the AI has created a system through which they can make all the cyborgs willingly just do work.
Exactly.
Like they pitch it as oh, come have fun and play the most awesome game in the world when actually you're busting your ass to supply the resources to.
I think
that implies that those creatures are legitimately aliens, and they need this resource to survive. And I'm just saying, in the backstory, that wasn't even touched on what those things are. Yeah. Which is why I just think it might be an artificially produced scarcity, like some sort of currency in an MMO that was created by the AI just to perpetuate war. Or
I think it could go either way because it seems like that does physically power all of the machines.
This actually
the cybernetic bodies are physically powered by the Oxio.
Yes, that's true.
It's funny because I have so many anime reference points when I was watching this show. Yeah. But now what I'm thinking of is Dorohedoro actually, where there's the upper and lower world, and in the upper world, it's there's obviously very strict control from the person who is in charge, and but it's maybe even Mad Max Fury Road would be a good comparison of they are the war boys. They're excited to go fight. They want to rise up the leaderboard, but the only reason they want to rise up the leaderboard is that you will be punished for taking action that is not positive capitalistic growth
because they're all about control. I mean this is the AI that controls everything. Their obsession is bugs. We must have perfect systems. We must destroy
remove
every
bugs.
bug in the system because, as they say, humanity was flawed and imperfect and chaotic, and their inherent, probably, mammalian brains were weak, and we are AIs. We can perfect the system, but will that prove to be true?
So
we'll find out.
Because the question is, what is the AI? I mean, in Psychopaths, the civil system was a bunch of brains in jars. Yeah. What is this going to turn out to be?
So we know that humanity in the Deca-Dence, they are physical human beings with microchips in their neck.
What the fuck do those microchips do? It's been totally unclear.
It seems like it's made for tracking them. It in the first episode, you see a guy, he's walking around drunk, and then he just and it seems like he dies.
Yeah,
and then Kaburagi comes and extracts the data from the microchip and this guy's a bug, and that makes it seem like he was an NPC.
But yeah, because
faulted,
notably, it's not like the humans are robots that can be turned off or they're human fucking beings. They don't just do that. So did the chip execute him somehow with a cyanide capsule or something? What the fuck is going on? There's too many layers, and my brain is having trouble catching
up. It's one of those where it's you might as well not even think about it because they're gonna tell you eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll tell us.
But but it's so interesting because it could go so many different ways. In terms of what the broader conspiracy is. Because it feels to me more along the lines of this is the reality of the world, is that humanity is surviving in the Deca-Dence. Obviously, they have to keep humanity around for some reason. That's why they're inside of
the
there.
Deca-Dence, by the way, is the mobile fortress that walks around.
And it is protecting humanity, and it is being powered by Oxio. So you can almost assume that is the reality of the world, and that the cyborgs are living in a lie where they think they're in an MMO because they need to go out and fight all these things.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of
Here's the question, though. We see the cyborgs world as a floating ship, but it looks like it's in some fucking weird 2D abstract space.
Yeah.
Where I thought that was going to be the datascape and their data creatures. No, they're physical somewhere.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? Where is that ship? I don't understand.
In the little graphic, it shows the ship on top of the dome. So I don't know if it's outside of the dome, and then their consciousness is being beamed into the physical gear bodies.
Oh, jeez.
That's what I assume.
But then, but for their physical body to be on the ground,
even it seems the way they present it, it seems like he simultaneously exists on the ship and here. He'll be seeing through his own eyes, and a pop-up will come up on his screen.
Battery's
so it's
dead.
Okay.
I'm
Should we
sorry,
pause?
green screen.
Okay, whatever. Fuck it. Well, I'm confused, but we know that those bodies are physical because they have those brains. That's a resource that they want. It's obviously not digital.
No,
That's
yeah,
something
I'm saying
legitimate.
they're controlling a different physical, robotic body. You know,
like in Nier Automata, they have bodies that you just transfer
exactly
your
like Nier
consciousness
Automata.
between.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, okay. I think we generally understand the world now.
Yeah.
It's really just interesting talking about like how this show feels like it's at the center of so many cultural reference points that we can make.
Yeah.
But they are like all kind of things. I mean, obviously there's older stuff this reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could compare like, you know, in the 80s you had a bunch of shows about a giant ship with all of humanity on it. But like, just the fact that it's like so much more like Darling in the Franxx or something from the last like 10 years, it really shows you how like we just keep building on like this iconography. It's like, okay, well,
it's an escalation of
Lagan
ideas,
put us in in a desert world. Like, how do we make another desert world that's like a little bit different and more interesting, you know? And like Dragon Dentist was also like kind of in a world like this or whatever. So yeah, it's just like it's fascinating to me that even though it feels like so many different things, it still feels unique because it just has this one way that it's like totally fucking different.
That's true. And I mean, our clear character dynamic is between one of the humans who are like the chattel of this world that are just working these menial jobs, being a glitch in the system, and then being a friend with like one of the top ranked fighters, Katsuragi or whatever it is, and he is like a cyborg who's empathetic because he's had bad experiences. He knows that this system is perpetuating suffering.
He's also encountering her because he's being punished. Where he taught somebody the secret to how to
release the limiter.
Yeah, release their limiter. And because he did that, he has to spend half of his time cleaning and the other half working as a Fed who extracts bugs, finds bugs, and reports bugs.
I'm still very interested in like the mechanics of the limiter, because on the second watch, I was thinking about the fact that it's described as releasing the limiter as like you have to put your body in a sort of physical pain, I guess.
He said that only people who are like addicted to pain use that technique, but it's about using. It's just a risk-reward system. It's like you put yourself at more risk in order to gain more power.
That doesn't make any sense because they were very clear.
It's
you
quite
feel
confusing.
pain no matter what, but you physically get hurt if you turn off your limiter. Who would actually want to, like, maybe if you want the thrill of battle, the adrenaline rush,
the point is you
risk.
get stronger. Yeah. Like, I'm willing to take the pain to make me stronger, is like the idea.
But if
that's a cost you pay,
and like that ultimately is what inspires him to train the girl, because like Mikey is eliminated for having done that, but
broke the rules.
He looks at it as like, well, Mikey got to do that on his own terms, of his own volition, so I want to also, you know, like, fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want to do as well. I'm gonna train this girl, and like, you know, he's really like a hard ass with her, because like obviously he fucked up with Mikey by not being a hard ass. So it's like, this time I'm gonna put you through the fucking ringer.
It's crystal clear, the themes they're getting at here, that all the good characters are people who don't like limiters and limitations, and everyone is either like they want freedom, or they themselves are a glitch in the system and a bug.
Tell me they don't look at me like I'm the motherfucking glitch.
Exactly. It's pretty clear that everyone here is Vanellope, and that that is the good guys. Will they... I mean, they're doing like a Nest raid right now in episode 4. That's supposed to be like the big. It's kind of like the raid of Zion in the Matrix 2 or whatever. That's supposed to happen regularly. Yeah. And the humans are just being like a pawn in this system. So like we've already reached basically like end game for the in-world events that are going on.
But they recycle it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like basically once a year they do this raid. So it's like. Because he said this war had been going on for like 500 years, you know. Well, so that does make me think that they are manufacturing the alien bad guys too, right?
Yeah,
and there's
I
a note.
agree.
So there's periodically there are comments responding to like the action and characters and stuff. Like when we're in his backstory, then like he's seeing like after his battles, comments talking about how he's boring and the other guy is cooler or whatever.
Yeah.
So it appears as though the people are watching this for entertainment.
Right.
And
presumably other cyborgs?
Yeah. And they talk about with the raid thing that like having this kind of conflict is more engaging for the audience.
Oh, it was extremes. Yeah. The audience prefers extremes.
So
because
I'm wondering...
Yeah, I think a big part of this show's message is that, like, think about it like political sides, right? if you are on one side and you think that the other side is the problem, like, you think that's being like, oh, I'm woke, I know those people are the problem. But the problem is the fact that there are sides, because somebody's manufacturing that, you know? And that's kind of what this show is trying to tell you, is like, look, you can fight in the, like, you know, there's the regular humans who are like piss baby nobodies, and then there's the warriors. And the warriors are like, they have the same confidence as somebody would who was outside of the system. Like, yeah, I believe in myself, I believe in my ability to fight, and I'm going to go out there and fight, and I'm going to prove myself. But, like, they just don't know that the battle is fabricated. That, like, they're giving their all to something that somebody else made up, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what is the trap that people are in, you know, is that you're all fighting for something that you really believe in because you were really convinced by somebody who really wants you to believe it, you know?
Very literal class struggle, you know? Yeah. Like, they think they could get out of their class, and it's like, you just can't. The world is not what you think it
unless
is.
You break out of the understanding of what they are telling you.
So I wonder if it's almost like there's a lower class, which is the humans in the Deca-Dence. There's a middle class, which is the gears, who think that they are above those people, even though they're just being used.
They're just as disposable.
They're being used by the 1%, which is...
Well, it's not even 1%, it's just the AI.
Well, it could also be the audience. Who is the audience? That's true. Is the thing.
Maybe the AI, like, because ultimately the decisions are all made by this little face ball that just makes different reactions. So it probably is just based on audience vote, right?
Yeah. Is there a collective consciousness of the
way
audience?
To know that. That's a total guess.
I mean, I'm just thinking about how it looks like buttons on like a like-dislike buttons.
Okay, no, that's not it at all, because the clear metaphor is that it's a perfected system that makes your decisions for you. They state that it's designed to make the decisions.
Like I was saying, like, you know, just like how the Sybil system was actually just a bunch of brains, like,
in that sense,
and, you know, could it be that this perfect system is it's a decision being made by a coalition of people. It
simulates multiple identities or something. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that could be true.
Like
it could be like
because who the fuck is making those comments and voting? I don't know.
What if it is a representation of the collective consciousness that is the internet and, like, Twitter?
Well, that's definitely what it's symbolized.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Well, I meant it in a more literal sense of, like, let's say that 700,000 people are watching the show. Yeah. They have a palette of buttons. Each of them presses a button, and whatever button the most people pressed, that's the face it picks. You know?
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah. Okay,
based on the audience.
The Occam's razor answer is because we have seen that there are other cyborgs that do, in fact, watch and react to other players. Right. It might just be the other cyborgs, and there's nothing, more to it. I don't know.
Well, think of it as like even with Gurren Lagann, where it's like you have the humans, they are being oppressed by the Beastmen. They think that's it. You know, they think the Beastmen are oppressing them. Then it turns out that everyone's being oppressed by the anti-spirals, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of similar to that in, like, we are only seeing part of the system, and there's a greater system that we'll be introduced to later.
Maybe, but I mean, the other thing of note is that this system was not implemented to hurt anyone. It was implemented to preserve what was left of humanity and to, like, grow more cyborgs. And it's doing that. And of course, any system that's like, I mean, this is just exactly what the anti-spirals did. Yeah. They're placing limits, and they're not allowing the potential for growth, which is what Gurren Lagann was entirely about. Right. By putting these limits, sure, you stay safe in your little bubble, but people suffer, and you never discover that there might be more out there. So maybe that's not the best idea long term. And they're locked in that system right now. Yeah, and will they break out of it? Who knows?
Communist China. All anime right now is about China.
I don't think so. I think it's more. Joking, I mean, like, I looked at this more as, like, with the whole, like,
they certainly are talking about capitalism. They literally say, like, good profits today or whatever.
Well, and
it's corporations.
So I always take the metaphor to post World War II, because, like, for Japan, that kind of was like the end of the world. It was like their regime was done. A lot of their people was done. A lot of their culture was done. So when they rebuilt, everything was about being super strict with themselves, similar to Germany. Both of these are countries who their mentality is hyper-lexical because they're like punished, basically. They're like, oh, you have to follow the rules, because if you don't, you will, if we listen to somebody who's charismatic, who's just saying stuff that people like to hear, like, we end up with Hitler, we end up with Tojo, So, like, the mentality is we want a very proper society where everybody follows the rules and everybody understands that it's for the greater good. In Japan, like, most of anime is criticizing this aspect of Japanese culture. You know, that like the hammer the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. That is a literal idiom they say.
And
you know,
that's
like,
literally what's going on in China too.
But it's going on everywhere in the world.
It's just like a authoritarian state problem.
I just don't think that this
it's a
show in
universal
particular has much to say about specifically China, so much as just,
I think it's the
corporatism.
grander story of chaos versus law that's existed since time began and always will. There will always be a push-pull, and there will probably never be any perfection, because there is no perfection in life.
I guess my main curiosity is, like, because, like, with Darling in the Franxx, it really was just Gurren Lagann again.
But shit.
This show, because of the fact
I didn't finish it.
It's not good.
Because of the fact that this show, like, already has introduced us to there being, like, 2 layers to this reality. We already know that the cyborgs are also oppressed.
Yeah.
That they're just as much a part of the system as anybody
Remember,
else.
Viral's whole... He had to discover that he was oppressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was one of the best parts of the whole fucking show. But they just laid it out for us here. Yeah.
So it's like, if we've already covered all that ground already, then, like, the only place to go is higher. Like, I don't think this show wants to sit around on... I don't know, because it is called Deca-Dence. So, like, I have to imagine that the
capitalism.
will be like relevant, you know, throughout the show. But like, because I'm trying to imagine, like, are we going to go to the other continents where we know there are other corporations?
I mean, maybe
are we going to go
Deca-Dence...
into space?
Are
we going to go...
that's a good question, but maybe Deca-Dence will just become the Dai Gurren, which will be their fortress with which they march and commit glorious battles.
Well, because I had a theory, and this is something that I almost forgot about because it only really came up in episode 1. Because there's a giant fist on top of the Deca-Dence.
Oh, forgot about that.
A big punch.
Yeah.
And
cool.
my theory is it might just be one hand, or it might even, because I think it's actually 2 hands that are normally up like this, and then they close and punch. So like, if these are just the hands of a bigger robot, then
which is possible, yeah. And okay, the other thing about that, because I it's hard to know how much of this is intended to be like thought about on whatever level. You have to judge it as you go. But like, I'm
a lot
wondering,
of symbolism, so I'm gonna say probably all of it should be taken into account. You know?
Sure, probably. But like I'm wondering, like, in a world where these AIs have constructed, like, an ongoing battle for the enjoyment of the viewer, they chose to make their mobile walking fortress, like, have the function specifically of a giant punchy thing that has to punch giant giant enemy monsters that they made, which, like, isn't even a player-involved activity. It's like, imagine having an MMO, and you're playing it, but then you need to stop playing for, like, half an hour while a cutscene plays and a big punch happens, and you just watch as... That's not fun. I don't understand why that's part of the mechanic.
That's why I think it's the only thing that's literally real.
These are aliens who invaded, and they needed this system, and this was what they came up with. Maybe they're literally using the capitalist engine in order to fuel, like, the war economy, basically, so that they can fight these alien invaders, and they're using the technology against it. That would make sense. I don't know.
Or maybe it's like the only reason that they can't beat the aliens, like, because they established that this raid is unwinnable, blah blah blah. The cycle will go on forever.
And he said that's literally fake. Like, there's no nest. So.
But it could be that those characters think that this is fake and there's no nest, but there is. And they just won't let them win.
It's true.
I think it'll be revealed pretty fast.
This is
like,
it's
the problem with being 4 episodes into a show.
This is the conversation the show wants you to have.
Yeah,
that's the point is ooh, I don't get the point yet. And I do have to keep watching.
And not to be an asshole about it, but the biggest driving thing. One, I want to see Natsume progress, but the other thing is really the mystery. Like, okay, all these twists and turns. If we just get to the end and they tell us the information, and it's like, aliens were real, we were just tricking you because it's fun to not know what's going on, I'll say, I mean, yeah, I enjoyed the ride, but, like, what did I really learn at the end of the day? And, again, like, every show ever made can be boiled down to the most basic themes that are always the story of whatever stories we tell. So, I'll give it some leeway. But, I don't know, I just hope that it does something kind of interesting beyond just, we gotta beat the system. Yeah. Because I've heard that before. Right. It's been done in a new and interesting way here, but I don't know.
I think
only
it'll pay off
new and only so interesting. Basically.
Yeah.
I think it'll pay off in the way that it pays off for Kaburagi, the character who doesn't know that there's a greater conspiracy and like has resigned himself to be in this system. You know,
That's true.
So, like, when there
That's
are those
true.
big reveals, it'll be most meaningful for him as a character, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, the two are like a duo, so they'll both learn. I mean, she knows
Yeah.
literally nothing about the real world,
Yeah.
and he knows one step higher. How many more steps higher does it go? We'll have to find out, I guess. Is it interdimensional? Is it digital? Is it fourth dimensional? I don't know. I just don't know.
So to comment briefly on the production of this show, I would say it looks nice. There's nothing like janky or shitty. It's very interesting that like it's really clever about its use of different like mediums of animation because obviously when you go to the other world, everything is way more simplistic, and it's like, you know, it uses an even blend of like CG, all the modern tricks, but whereas I feel like most anime, especially originals, go out of their way to overextend themselves. They're always like, we're gonna do something new. We're gonna push the envelope forward. This show decided to do that on the script level, and therefore, like, manage the production in a way that it just seems like a healthy production to me. And like, like, the CG looks fine. It's never in a shot where it would matter for it to look better than it does. You know, like... You'll see some CG water, you'll see some CG monsters, and you'll go, oh, all right, you know, like, doesn't look bad. It's
always
not
in the
distracting,
background,
you know?
yeah.
It's not like in, like, Ari Ferreira where they just, like, drop a CG dragon directly into the screen, and it's the worst-looking thing you've ever seen. It's like, you know...
like we're seeing animation of her flying around doing the like 3D fighting, and it all looks great. All those scenes are excellent.
Tons of great character animation of people flipping around. The girl looks great. I love her character design.
Yeah, me too.
I think they gave her just the right amount of roundness in the different areas, you know?
Indeed.
There's a lot of nice ass in this show, which is always a joy.
We noticed
Most
that episode
anime
1.
skip out on ass.
Including on the men.
This show does not. But yeah, it's just like, to me, anime, like good anime production is not about like reaching the highest level of quality. It's about like cleverness in where you put the money, you know, like where did you put the animation? You don't need the animation in these scenes, so how do you make these scenes visually interesting without animation? And in this show, it's like, do a totally different art style that will look good with no animation, because it's all just, you know, cutesy characters and shit, like,
and it works very well.
Smart.
And so ballsy and bold to do that too, like to have it
you know, it would probably be
that
fucking
style.
terrifying too, and I'm sure that like there's a good ass reason they didn't put it in episode 1, because they were like, we want you already hooked, we want you already on the wagon.
Forget it. I mean, that's absolutely true. But like, even aesthetically, I really appreciate, and I can see what they're doing with going from gritty war setting to just cute, like chibi, like decadence, right? It's crystal clear the point, and it's
super
made
flat,
well.
You know,
yeah.
it's like the super flat style invented by what's his name, Murakami something.
Yeah, super flat.
He's directing the Kids See Ghosts cartoon with Kanye West, and
that's gonna be good.
But yeah, so like the idea of super flat though is like, you know, the hyper saturation of just like as much cutesy shit as humanly possible, because. I mean, he created the idea like 20 years ago, and it has not stopped being the reality of Japanese culture. It's just a complete saturation of cute shit in your face all the time. And yeah, I'd say the futuristic stuff has a bit of a super flat style. Reminds me of Super Milk Chan.
Yeah, I see it. Especially like the spaceship reminds you of Milk's house planet. I don't remember. It's been a long time. I mean, in our summary that's true. In our summary of the plot, we basically covered everything I have to say about the show.
Same.
Yeah.
Because it really is like the mystery, and then the animation, and like how is Natsume growing. I mean, I like the fact that I didn't catch this at first, but I really like that they put that piece at the very beginning when you see Natsume's dad with one of the cyborg bodies.
Yeah.
Like watching that back, you'd be like, oh shit. That is actually an interesting mystery as to exactly what the connection between them is. How would that get here? Clearly, it's part of the system. And it's all going to be unraveled, and, you know, I'm kind of looking forward to the characters' reaction to these things, and to the actual mystery being escalated more as we learn who's really in control, what exactly are their intentions, what is the reality of, like, the power dynamics of these corporations, if they even are still corporations, or if they've all merged, inevitably, into one giant conglomerate. It'd be a little weird if, like, they're all about authoritarian control, but they're, like, competing with other ones. But I guess it could still be done, but, I don't know. I find it very compelling, and it's good, and it's a classic message, and I just hope it's done, and it continues to do it in a unique way as it's done so far. and I like it. That's it.
Score.
I mean, for this one, because I'm a little dubious, I'm kind of between the, like, 7 to 8. I'd probably go, like, light 8 is where I feel.
I'm in, like, the
Kill
same
me.
strong 7, light 8 kind of range at the moment. There's a lot of potential to go either way.
I
as there
need to
always
know
is.
how it ends. I need to know.
But, like, the thing about this show is it really takes me back to, like, the late 2000s. Because, like, the early 2000s, there was tons of original anime that was, like, crazy ambitious. And that was unsustainable. Late 2000s, you had, like, a market crash. And then you had shows that were, like, trying to be like, okay, well, we'll be original, but we're not going to, like, try to fucking push everything to the limit. We're going to do, like, the range of what we can do.
Yeah.
And, you know, that it's not to say that that ever died out at any point, but, like, just the way this show handles it, where, again, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. Neither was Darling in the Franxx, and that show was, like, more sleek and sexy than this one. This one's a little bit more, like, homey. It's more about the world building and
I like the gritty atmosphere of the Deca-Dence as well.
Yeah, it's, like, you know, I won't say that it's, like, aesthetically, like, gorgeous or anything like that. Like, there's no shots that look incredible, but there's no shots that look bad, and all of it is like, yeah, I feel like this world feels real. These characters feel real. They feel like they're in a real place. Like, I buy it, basically. It's not aesthetically gratifying, but it's aesthetically cohesive.
I found myself enjoying the way it looked quite a bit. And you know what? Aesthetically, there's one other thing I really liked, and it's that Natsume is a tanker, aka human, and it's discussed right from the beginning that she wants to be a soldier, she wants to be a gear, but, like, the tankers, as human beings in the system, it's very rare for them to make it, because they fucking die, and they get killed, as opposed to the gears that are not human. They are some other... We don't even know, like, literally what they are, because they're the minds of those cyborgs puppeting these. What are they exactly? I don't know. But I love the dynamic that's been set up as, like, every human in the system, and we see some really powerful human warriors, like, the underdog story of that, as opposed, because, like, the system is literally not built for, like, humans to survive or thrive in it, but some are just so good. It kind of makes it that every soldier, we talked about how the show is, like, celebrating glitches and celebrating being a bug and being different because it represents evolution and change. All those soldiers, inherently, by surviving in the system that was designed for the cyborg mind puppets to operate in, and are far more efficient at it by default, it kind of, like, those already represent that chaotic element, that, like, evolutionary spirit, that some humans can not only compete, but maybe thrive and do better than others, like Kurenai, like the strongest human warrior, like Levi from Attack on Titan. Only Levi turned out to, like, be a destined child with DNA blood that makes him good at killing titans, or whatever the fuck was going on with that. I don't remember. But that's a very... everybody loves an underdog. Everybody loves an underdog. Yeah. And setting up Natsuki as, like, one of those, hopefully she'll become the best. We've already seen her have some epic fight moments. It's good shit. And it gets me invested, and it's good. It's good. Underdog stories are good.
Yeah. I'm at, like, a fucking 9 out of 10. Because I love this kind of... I'm afraid, as I always am with anime originals, that it could completely go to shit. But this one is not showing the red flags that most anime originals do by episode 4, you know, or even in episode 1. I'm a big fan of anime original. This
I love
type
that
of
too.
story, it just, like, everything about it, I'm just like, oh, I love this, top to bottom. I just hope it continues to pay off. I'd love it if it were 26 episodes long. I doubt it will be, but,
I agree.
Yeah, it makes me nostalgic for, like, Eureka 7 and, like, Gurren Lagann and that kind of shit, and I just hope they fucking knock it out of the park.
It all just depends on where it goes from here, how it's handled. We'll see. It's definitely worth watching the first 4 episodes. So we've been blessed with the 2 shows that we've watched of the season.
There's only so much this season if you're not watching this and God of High School. I'm almost at High School of God. It's like, what the fuck else are you watching other than some Moe shit, I guess?
What's that one about sinking? Japan sinks?
Well, that was a Netflix.
More like Japan
put out all at once.
Stings.
You should definitely watch Japan Sinks too as like a fucking it's something unique to talk about. But
It's 10 whole episodes.
yeah, but they dropped it all at once, so it's whatever. Yeah. Then watch my anime done quick Japan Sinks 2020.
There you
You
go.
can experience the whole show start to finish. You'll get the entire plot, but in a much funnier and digestible way. That's only 45 minutes long.
I'd prefer that.
And
You'll miss out on all of the metaphors and all of the themes and get all of the memes. That's all you need.
Good. That's
all I
a
want.
preferable version. You could also find Best Guy Ever and DigiNay on our channels and everything else linked in the description.
Correct.
The next thing that we're going to talk about is probably going to be the Goblin Slayer movie.
Yeah, okay.
So
I like that.
You know, this is the date that the Goblin Slayer movie video will come out, so make sure you watch the Goblin Slayer movie before then. And we'll see you on KHANTENT!
See you on the next content. Bye.